I wasn't looking for trouble that evening. In fact, I wasn't looking for anything at all. It was just another quiet, rainy night as I drove through the rural backroads, lost in thought. The rain hammered against my windshield, and the wipers struggled to keep up. I had been traveling for hours, the road stretching endlessly before me with nothing but darkness on either side. It was then that I saw it, the faint glow of a light through the trees. I slowed down, peering through the sheets of rain, and caught a glimpse of an old house set back from the road. It was almost hidden, shrouded by tall oaks and overgrown ivy. The wooden gate at the entrance was barely hanging on its hinges, and a worn-out sign above it read Harlow Manor. I don't know why I felt the urge to stop. Perhaps it was the eerie beauty of the place or the strange sense of being drawn there. I pulled over and sat for a moment staring at the manor. It looked like it had been abandoned for years, windows dark, paint peeling, and the garden choked with weeds. But one window on the top floor was lit, a flickering light like an old candle. Curiosity got the better of me. I grabbed my flashlight from the glove compartment and stepped out of the car, the rain soaking me instantly. The cold water dripped down my face as I pushed open the rusty gate. It creaked loudly, echoing through the silence of the night. I made my way up the stone path, the weeds tangling around my ankles. As I approached the front door, I noticed something strange. The house was deathly silent. No sound of wind, no rustle of leaves, nothing but the steady drumming of rain. I knocked, and the sound was swallowed by the quiet. I was about to turn back when the door slowly creaked open on its own, revealing a dark, empty foyer. I hesitated on the threshold, my flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. The air inside was stale, thick with the smell of damp wood and dust. Taking a deep breath, I stepped inside. The door slammed shut behind me, making me jump. I turned around quickly, but no one was there. "Hello?" I called out, my voice echoing through the empty halls. No response. The silence was almost oppressive, pressing in on me from all sides. I could feel the weight of the house, as if it was watching me, waiting. I shined my flashlight around the foyer. The walls were lined with dusty, faded portraits. In each one, a pair of eyes seemed to follow me. At the far end of the hall, I noticed a large, grand staircase leading up to the second floor. The faint light from the window upstairs flickered again, casting eerie shadows on the walls. I made my way to the staircase, the wood creaking under my weight. As I climbed, I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone. I reached the top and turned towards the room with the light. The door was slightly ajar, and I could see the glow of a candle inside. I pushed the door open gently and stepped inside. It was a large bedroom, richly furnished but covered in dust and cobwebs. An ornate four-poster bed stood in the center, its curtains tattered and faded. On a small table by the window, a single candle burned, its flame dancing in the draft. And sitting at the table, facing the window, was a woman. Her back was to me, and her long, dark hair cascaded down her back. She was dressed in an old-fashioned white gown, stained and torn at the hem. I swallowed hard, the hair on the back of my neck standing up. "Ma'am," I whispered. She turned slowly, her face pale and gaunt, as if she hadn't seen sunlight in years. Her eyes were hollow, dark voids that seemed to pierce right through me. "You shouldn't be here," she said in a soft, almost melodic voice. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to intrude," I stammered. "I saw the light and thought someone might need help." She looked past me, as if she was expecting someone else. "You've come to hear our story," she whispered. "Everyone does eventually." Before I could respond, the temperature in the room dropped suddenly, my breath visible in the frigid air. The candle flickered violently, casting dancing shadows on the walls. The woman's expression changed from one of sorrow to something darker, a twisted smile curling on her lips. "Do you know who I am?" she asked, her voice almost a hiss. I shook my head slowly, my mouth dry. "I am Loretta Harlow. This was my home once, our home." Her voice broke on the last word, and she turned back to the window, gazing out into the storm. "And your husband?" I found myself asking, though I didn't want to know the answer. "Jean," she whispered. My sweet John. He's still here, you know. We're both still here, trapped. Her words sent a chill down my spine. This house, it keeps us, keeps our memories, our pain. I wanted to ask her more, but a sudden, loud crash came from downstairs. I turned towards the door, my heart racing. What was that? He's awake, she said, her voice barely audible. He doesn't like visitors. I backed away, moving towards the door. I'm sorry, I'll leave. I didn't mean to disturb you. She looked at me, her eyes filled with a mixture of sadness and anger. It's too late, she said. You're part of this now. I fled from the room, sprinting down the hallway. The air seemed to grow heavier, and the walls themselves seemed to close in on me. I reached the top of the staircase and looked down. Standing at the bottom was a man, his face hidden in the shadows. He was tall, with broad shoulders, and he held an axe in his hand, its blade glinting in the dim light. Jean, I whispered. He stepped forward, his face coming into view. His eyes were bloodshot, his face twisted with fury. You took her from me, he growled, his voice deep and rumbling like distant thunder. You took my Loretta. I stumbled back, my mind racing. No, I didn't, I'm just... Liar! He roared, lifting the axe. I turned and ran, throwing myself down the stairs, hitting the ground hard. I scrambled to my feet, the pain shooting up my leg, but I pushed through it, sprinting for the front door. I could hear his heavy footsteps behind me, the sound of the axe dragging on the wooden floor. I reached the door and yanked it open, throwing myself outside. The rain had stopped, but the air was thick with mist. I ran to my car, fumbling with the keys. The engine roared to life, and I looked back towards the house one last time. In the doorway stood Loretta, her white gown fluttering in the breeze. Next to her was Jean, his hand on her shoulder. They looked at me with those hollow, empty eyes, and then slowly, they faded into the darkness, the house swallowing them whole. I sped away, my hands shaking on the steering wheel, my heart pounding in my chest. I didn't stop until I was miles away. I pulled over, trying to catch my breath, my mind reeling from what I had just experienced. I thought about Loretta's words, about being trapped in that house with her husband. A cursed marriage, bound by love turned to hatred, and a house that wouldn't let them go. Even now, when I close my eyes, I can see them standing there, watching me leave. And sometimes, in the silence of the night, I swear I can still hear the sound of an axe dragging across the floor, a reminder that the silent house never truly lets anyone go.